Avenger Shrine shall send its warriors.
Good evening. This is Maestro Cretella with the Dawn of War 3 cast. Today we have a 1v1 on Charon's Rest. Our first player is Pengween, playing as the Eldar, and he has chosen as his elites the Striking Scorpions, Jain Zar, and Farseer Macha. His opponent is Impavide, who is playing as the Space Marines, and as his elites he has chosen the Imperial Knight Paladin, Chaplain Diomedes, and Kill Team Ironmaw. So, this is actually a replay I received in an email, one of the few replays that I've actually received for Dawn of War 3, but I've been getting some. One of the things we see in this replay is that this player right here, Impavide, has chosen to get an early arsenal, and typically the early arsenal actually means that he's going to emphasize tactical marine play as opposed to assault marine play. Assault marine play typically being what's more typical at the moment. Assault marines actually, somewhat unexpectedly, ending up being basically the core unit for Space Marines at the moment, as opposed to the Tactical Marines. Assault Marines being a little bit more meta, while Tactical Marines being a little bit off meta. But part of what this player right here is doing to try to make Tactical Marines work, for one, going for the arsenal early on does mean that he is planning to get a flamer on at least one of his Tactical Marine squads. He only has one at the moment. And we can also see that he has several doctrines. In fact, all three doctrines are to buff Tactical Marines. One of them gives an ability-based frag grenade. One improves their flamer ability when they have flamers. And the last one is the tireless ability, or the tireless doctrine, which increases their speed when not in combat, which makes them move around very, very quickly. So our Space Marine player going a little off meta, whereas our Eldar player seems to be very much on meta, going with a Dire Avenger opening, triple Dire Avengers. And it looks like, unfortunately, the doctrines shown in the panel to the right are incorrect, but we do have the doctrines shown correctly on top of the unit itself. Improved plasma grenades, as well as the Avenger Shield. The Avenger Shield in particular is very, very much expected. And we're seeing a total of 4 Dire Avengers at the moment. But the map control is pretty even, with both players having roughly symmetrical map control. But it looks like, so far, Pengween has done a little bit more investing in his resource points. Might be a little bit for naught, because here is the response from the Tactical Marines. One goes from a distance, one actually comes a lot closer. And if I take a look at this one, I wanted to take a look at the squads. So both of these Tactical Marine squads have actually, no, I'm incorrect. Only one of them has been upgraded with their Flamer. And the Flamer is a little strange in that it does not fire by default. I believe it only fires with the ability. And when the ability is not in use, the model that used the Flamer actually switches back to a bolter. And we can actually see that right now, all of these Tactical Marine models. So there's that frag grenade going in from the Tactical Marine. The Tactical Marine frag grenade is not particularly powerful, but, I mean, you get a grenade as opposed to not having one at all. And it does disrupt. So, Pengween actually with the advantage in map control now, having all 3 of the contested resource points. Lost one of them, though. Here is a call-in. What is this going to be? Is that Kill Team Ironmaw? And it is. So Kill Team Ironmaw very much functioning as a buff tac squad. Throwing their Vortex Grenade right where the Striking Scorpions are. The Striking Scorpions are still going to town. They use their Leap Strike. I wonder how he's going to deal with the Striking Scorpions. The Striking Scorpions, so again, our Eldar player very much going on meta. But those Flamers actually doing work against the Striking Scorpions. That was nice. And flame damage, I'm trying to read it as they, it didn't quite work as well as I'd hoped, but the flamer proving to be pretty effective, particularly, and it looks like the Kill Team Ironmaw has also been upgraded with, a flamer. So obviously, Flamer's working quite a bit differently in this game than in Dawn of War 2. There is the Flamer activation. grenades going in as well. I think Kill Team Ironmaw... Well, alright, so Eldar player choosing not to commit there. I feel like, I don't know, maybe could have put a little bit more pressure on Kill Team Ironmaw, since Kill Team Ironmaw was low on health, but just went for the safe play of moving back. I mean, I guess if he does bleed models, he is going to have to spend that back in requisition if he actually keeps the squad alive, whereas Kill Team Ironmaw, even if it dies, there's no economic cost, although there will be that time that it is not on the field. And we do see our Space Marine player putting listening posts on the resource points that he has captured. Does not look like our Eldar player is doing the same. So here are the Striking Scorpions. The Striking Scorpions considered, again, rather meta. Their true damage critical attacks, as well as I feel like just their overall dominance. Once they get into melee, it seems like they are pretty much winning most melee fights head-to-head. At just about any given time in the early game when they are out on the field. Certainly at the time when probably any 2-point or even any 3-point elite can be called out onto the field, it seems like they're pretty much winning all of those head-to-head fights.
We have lost a squad of warriors.
Alright, wow, they found just gonna cut up that servitor really quickly. And then my guess is they will go for some pressure on the listening post. Meanwhile, we do have Tactical Marines harassing the shield generator for Pengween. Works very slowly, and here's the response. Let's take a look again back at the Striking Scorpions. See, they work quite a bit more quickly, especially with those special attacks, or those critical attacks is what they are really called. But wow, Pengween is actually... So he had Dire Avengers, and then he apparently lost a lot of them. Meanwhile, so he's making some new Dire Avengers. Meanwhile, we have a Devastator Marine squad out for Impavide, and again, this is something that is off-meta, but he does have the Paladin's command, so that is the ability that comes from having the Imperial Knight Paladin as one of his elites, which is, Devastators will, we can see it here, they get a shield when they are stationary. And of course, Devastators do have to be stationary to fire. Alright, that shield is actually quickly being depleted by the Dire Avengers. They're now their health is being depleted. And I actually wanted to see if I could see how many hit points that shield offered, but now that it's gone, it won't even show me. So that means he's gone for the Doctrine Chapel, which again is also considered off-meta for the Space Marines. And again, now a forward Doctrine Chapel, so he's got his second Doctrine Chapel, whereas the Barracks is typically the meta choice for the Space Marines at the moment, and that's what gives you Assault Marines. Assault Marines being the core unit for Space Marines at the moment, and Scouts are also used kind of as a supplement. The Scouts, they're used, although at the same time, from what I've noticed, their use is also very situational, and doesn't seem to last very long. Like, they'll be used in the early game to supplement Assault Marines, but by the late game, it doesn't seem like Scouts are ever really repurchased. So we take a look at the builds. We do have quad Dire Avengers, well, triple at the moment, but a fourth one is being built. We do see the first Viper out from Pengween. Meanwhile, if we take a look back at Impavide, triple Tactical Marines, every single one of them with a Flamer. And the Flamer, I wanted to see... So one of the things that's a little bit tricky about this game is the current tooltip that comes stock with the game itself, not that there's actually any other one at the moment, provides some statistics, but not all. Like, it'll tell the melee and range DPS of a Tactical Marine, basically for their normal weapons, but it won't tell us that information for the Flamer. Or the grenade. It'll tell what kind of damage, but it won't tell much else. So it looks like some harassment by the Viper on one of the natural resource points for Impavide, and does manage to get out of there. So it appears the Viper actually does true damage, and I'm pretty sure, and this is another thing where the information provided by the game isn't exactly complete. Because the Viper has two weapons. It has a rocket launcher. It also has what I'm assuming is either a shuriken catapult or a shuriken cannon. My guess is shuriken catapult. But it doesn't tell the damage for that shuriken catapult. And, I mean, it's also tricky because I believe the rocket fires no matter what. It seems to automatically target, whereas the shuriken catapult will only target while facing forward. Looks like something might happen. There is Macha. So I've had a lot of experience using Macha in the campaign. She is nuking tactical marines right there. So, and Macha is considered both a crowd control unit as well as a nuker. It looks like this is going to be the end of Kill Team Ironmaw for the moment. So Macha throws her spear, and she can use her other abilities. Psyker Blast and Temporal Weave can be used either when she has her spear in her hand or when she has thrown it, and the effect changes slightly depending on which is the case. So Psyker Blast, a very powerful area of effect damage ability, really nukes squads. Temporal Weave is a channeled stasis ability. She does have fairly long cooldowns, though, especially for Temporal Weave, so I often feel she's kind of very hot and cold, where her abilities are strong, but at some point, when the abilities are on cooldown, they don't do much. And I think her effectiveness when she does not have her abilities off cooldown is quite a bit less. So we're seeing the continued harassment by the Viper on the resource generators, especially with no listening post here. I mean, there was a listening post before, but it was taken down by the Striker Scorpions, of course. And if we actually view it, we see the shuriken catapult in the front, and again, I'm just going to go with it being a shuriken catapult, doing fairly minimal damage, and now not even firing because the nose of the Viper is not facing towards this generator. Whereas that rocket is a turret. We can see it right on top. One of the few times we'll actually scroll in. Can't scroll in this game as much as in Dawn of War 2 to get a good view, but we can see it well enough here, I think. Tactical Marines decide to stand up right next to it, and we see another group of Tactical Marines. And I don't know, my guess is maybe he's lost track of this Viper, and he's probably going to lose this Viper. Yeah, that's the end of the Viper. Meanwhile, we've got Chaplain Diomedes. And Chaplain Diomedes, as I went through the campaign, was a unit that I was not entirely sure how he actually worked. I think I figured him out more now. And honestly, the way he works is, it doesn't seem like he's actually a terribly hard unit to use, because for the most part, it's just you fight with him, and then you Zeal and Fury. It's basically like you put Diomedes in combat, and then he basically has beneficial effects, both to himself, basically both to himself as well as units around him, just by being in combat. And then Liturgies of Battle is an activated ability, but it's also the same where you activate it, and then it's just like you put Diomedes in combat, and he will buff himself as well as units around him. Kill Team Ironmaw back out on the field, so just with the way elites work. And Kill Team Ironmaw is now back with a missile launcher, doing true damage, with a pretty nice impact on that Falcon. But the Falcon, look at how powerful the Falcon is. The Falcon really just taking chunks out of Kill Team Ironmaw's health. The Falcon, I was going to say, wow, actually just does normal damage. I don't know, some part of me was expecting it to do true damage, but actually, in the end, it's not surprising that it does normal damage. But it does good normal damage. The shield has regenerated fully, but it needs armor repair. And if we take a look, so wow, and the Falcon's a reinforcing point too. It is. That seems pretty powerful to me. Considering the Falcon at the moment seems to be useful basically just as a tank, just as an assault vehicle, doing good damage. It's got good enough health as well as shields that it doesn't necessarily die that easily. And then it also acts as a transport and a reinforcement point. Alright, Jain Zar leading some Dire Avengers. They're going to take out another Servitor. So I don't know what the Servitor is going in there for. Maybe just to tie things up? Yeah, I mean, that's actually not terribly unexpected. Might just tie... Well, I don't know. Tying up the Striker Scorpions, he will just go down pretty quickly from that. Meanwhile, this Tactical Marine squad is in quite a bit of trouble. I think he's kind of just accepted that he's going to lose this Tactical Marine squad. I think he attempted to save it with the Vortex Grenade, but just wasn't enough.
Wouldst thou cast the holy standard? Our holy standard is cast.
Standard being dropped? I don't think that's enough. I don't know about that, yeah. I don't think that's enough when Kill Team Ironmaw is being overwhelmed. The standard will at some point just inevitably be captured. And didn't do it early enough so that Kill Team Ironmaw could have gotten out a shield. So drop pods, was that 2 drop pods? I missed it because I was looking over. We've got a stasis on these units, which is actually pretty bad for them, because that just gives them time for I was gonna say for Striking Scorpions to just stand right on top of them. But instead, this is actually smarter. Go for the units that are still out on the field. But it looks like Macha does have to back off, or maybe the ability actually just ran out. Alright, Diomedes looks like he's actually going to finish off Macha. Or, no, right, forgot about that last chance ability. Still, the positioning is not good, and she could be in quite a bit of trouble. Macha doesn't even bother to use Psyker Blast. I feel like it might have been a good idea to use Psyker Blast. Probably would have taken out several models on these 2 tac squads right here.
Tactical Marines ready.
So Diomedes leads the charge. I like Diomedes, though, in this game. He got an upgrade in his voice actor, and I actually just think it's kind of fun the way he really just charges in. He's very fighty, I guess. As much as that's not strong vocabulary. But man, it just really seems like the Falcon... well, there are 2 Falcons here. It's kind of an optical illusion. They're on top of each other. But they're also not being microed, so this is pretty bad. Has decreased movement speed for, I think, because of the slow death ability on the the slow death doctrine on the Flamer ability. And we're going to see 2 Falcons just die. But here's Jain Zar. So 2 Falcons die. That's a lot of power, though. Meanwhile, the Las Cannons, I think the Las Cannons are also partly... Wow! The Las Cannons are just getting... The Las Cannon Devastators just getting gibbed. Well, they don't really actually gib in this game, but definitely nuking the squad. But Devastator Marine Las Cannons, I believe the way that... man, I'm trying to read the squads before they die. But basically, their damage increases over time as they keep the Las Cannons on just 1 target. So here's Jain Zar. I don't entirely understand why the yin-yang is her symbol. I don't know. I mean, it's not just a lore thing. That's a real... That's something that exists in real world culture. Maybe someone can explain it more to me. Alright. So here's that Dire Avenger army again. And, I mean, we're seeing something different from how I personally played this game in the campaign. We're seeing a heavy emphasis on Dire Avengers. I noticed that Dark Reapers are actually pretty rarely built. Certainly not built in this game at all so far. So, let's actually take a look back over at Pengween's side. He's got Jain Zar out in the field. Jain Zar actually with very, very high melee damage. She's going to use one of her abilities to get in. Now she's in. Wow, so she actually used... I mean, she's got 2 abilities. No, actually, she's got... Yeah, she's got 2 abilities.
Tier 3 has been attained.
But there's that Flamer again, from this time from Kill Team Ironmaw.
Upgrade secured. Let the enemy beware the howling banshees.
So if we actually take a look at the build, we've got 7 Dire Avengers and 3 Howling Banshee squads, kind of just sitting around. Where even was I? So there's a destroyed Doctrine Chapel. Space Marines, obviously a big part of their gameplay is making use of the drop pods.
We risk losing a point.
And they're the only race that really has that. Certainly at the moment, where they can really just put a unit out on the field in any place they want. Probably need vision, but you can just put a unit out on the field any place they want.
Fate has carried me to the field.
And any unit. There's that last chance again, keeping Jain Zar alive.
Infantry damage.
That's something that honestly probably will make Macha pretty useful. Just over the life of the game. It's kind of how I expect it to work out. So we've got a rather big Dire Avenger army, 7 Dire Avengers. Meanwhile, Impavide with his... so at this point he's got two Devastators. These are heavy bolter Devastators. Looks like he's lost... No, he's still got one of the las cannon Devastators, 3 tac squads, 2 more building. Kill Team Ironmaw out on the field but low on health, so they're not in the battle.
Tactical Marines are in position to commence deep strike.
So there's the shield wall ability. And let's see if it will actually tell me now how much... Okay, so that shield is actually for a decent amount. It's for like almost... I was going to say almost 50% of their health. More orbital drops. Doesn't even knock over friendly units.
We have a listening post now.
We're going to see that grenade ability go in just on these blobbed up units. I think our Eldar player is a bit in retreat. So if we take a look at our elite points right now, we're at 4 elite points, soon to be 5 for Impavide. I was wondering if we're at the point where we might see that Imperial Knight Paladin, whereas Pengween has all of his... He actually has all of his elites already called down, and he can recall them without needing the elite points at any time if they actually do get incapacitated or killed or whatever. Diomedes back out on the field, but of course there is that last chance ability, although I believe it was already used once, so this time Jain Zar actually does go down.
Unleashing the Eldritch storm.
So yeah, I was actually about to get to that, which is that because Pengween's elites are already called, the only thing he has left to use his elite points on are Eldritch Storms. And the first nuke is actually cheap, and then I believe the way it works is every consecutive nuke will cost an additional elite point. There's also, of course, the cooldown in between. There is a cooldown. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but we'll find out very soon once this Eldritch ends that it is a 5-minute cooldown. We'll double check. And we see how long this Eldritch lasts. The Eldritch, so the way nukes are quite a bit different in this game than they are in Dawn of War 2. In Dawn of War 2, they're very much much quicker. They were burst damage, so actually 250... Says 300 second cooldown, but then... Oh, I see. So 300 second cooldown, but it looks like the cooldown actually starts once the ability... once the ability even starts. So it was... The cooldown started counting down even while the Eldritch was still active. So nukes last much, much longer in this game than they do in Dawn of War 2, where, I mean, they really were nukes in the sense that they were just a quick, big explosion. Whereas in this game, they don't do as much front-loaded burst damage, but they last quite a bit longer. You also actually can control them and move them around manually. Oh man, those flamers actually tearing apart. Absolutely tearing apart those Dire Avengers. So we're going to see the March of the Tactical Marines. Striker Scorpions jumping in, but they may actually be overwhelmed. But do they have a last chance available? They do, but I don't think it's actually going to help them in this case. This is actually looking like potentially the end of the game. since we do have a just a rather strong push from Impavide. Nah, actually, I think I'm calling that wrong. Might be calling that a little too soon. Diomedes going YOLO, using his face as his shield, but he also has the Rosarius ability, and I think I've figured out how the Rosarius ability actually works. I think we're actually going to see it now. We're going to see it very soon. I believe that's the Rosarius ability now active, even though we can't see it. Rosarius, and eventually the Rosarius deactivates. So it works somewhat similarly to Macha's Last Chance, which is, I believe, just when an elite is about to die. When an elite is about to die, instead of dying, they'll become briefly invulnerable for just a few seconds. This really seems like a waste of an orbital beam. They'll become vulnerable for just a few seconds, and I think that kind of gives you just like a last chance to win the fight. But in that case, Diomedes was still just in over his head. So Diomedes now uses real shields instead of his face as his shield. Holy Standard is ready to be planted again. So indecisive push. Well, actually, it wasn't completely indecisive. He did get one of the shield generators. So that shield generator is nice because getting the shield generator is nice. Does give you an influx of resources, instant influx of resources. In particular, getting that extra elite point. And so, what do we see coming out right here? Oh, that's Jain Zar. So for Pengween, Eldritch will soon be off cooldown. Eldritch, I believe, costs 2 elite points on the first cast, and this time it'll cost 3. He'll have it. In fact, he does have it. Although a long time, actually, before he's going to get another one. So I'd say he probably only has one more Eldritch Storm left in this game. Probably going to make sure he wants to use it well if he wants to win. Meanwhile, Impavide, man, he actually used a orbital bombardment. Definitely not well. And that also is kind of keeping him from calling down the Imperial Knight Paladin. I don't know if we'll see the Imperial Knight Paladin. We will see 3 drop pods right on top of Eldar units. What are we going to see coming out of them? We're going to see... Oh, a Death Storm! Death Storm, probably one of the best to use in that case. Just going to start firing assault cannons in all directions. So, I mean, the Death Storm drop pod is loaded with assault cannons. Ooh, but while he wasn't looking, here is another... Oh, no, that's a Falcon. Sorry, that's a Fire Prism. Wasn't expecting a Fire Prism instead of a Falcon. And then also surprised me he's getting this close. You don't need to get that close with a Fire Prism. Fire Prism has very long range. So, meanwhile, what's going on here? Oh, here's the Eldritch. Here comes the Eldritch. Eldritch Energy. So the Eldritch Storm does both damage as well as a slowing effect on any units.
Heavy bolter team en route.
There's also a secondary way of using the Eldritch Storm. It's this conduit ability right here, but it's not currently being used. Meanwhile, going to move the Eldritch Storm back onto the Space Marine unit. So, I mean, that Eldritch Storm being more of a storm rather than like lightning bolts. I mean, there still is lightning coming down, but it doesn't feel to me like that was particularly impactful. I have a feeling we're going to see the end of this Fire Prism. Yeah, that's going to be it. So, and I mean, losing that Fire Prism hurts. Fire Prism incredibly expensive on requisition. Sorry, on power. On power, 375 power. So Pengween can't afford to build another one. Well, he's already got one, and he actually has another in production. So he's going all in on the Fire Prisms at the moment. Aside from also the Dire Avengers that he has. Striking Scorpion still moving through. And we now actually have Impavide choosing... I don't know, I actually feel like maybe he's had this all along, but I feel like it feels like to me like he just got he just got this point and put a listening post on it. I'm probably wrong. And what is interesting to note about this is that he's actually very close to getting 9 elite points. That means soon he will be able to call down the Imperial Knight Paladin. I have a feeling that that's what's going to give Impavide the pushing power he needs to actually push for the victory. Alright. Diomedes being called onto the field. Imperial Knight Paladin is available. Diomedes just being called down there. That's got to be the... Yeah, that's the Imperial Knight Paladin being called down. Right down there. So the Imperial Knight Paladin is rather exciting. We can see it just blasting away. I actually really like that sound effect. That should be 1 dead fire prism. The second one definitely does not stand a chance either. I actually love that cannon that the Imperial Knight Paladin has. So the Imperial Knight Paladin, what was that? Just a is he just showing off the abilities? All right, so the Imperial Knight Paladin is basically the alternate Imperial Knight that you can get for Space Marines. Of the other one, of course, being Solaria, the one much more publicized. Solaria really just being a range specialist Paladin. All right, that's pretty much just a conceit. So I've figured out how that works now. When a power core isn't actually destroyed, but it makes that sound effect and goes to the power core, that just means it was a conceit. I think he just... Eldar player really realized he was not really going to be able to handle that Paladin. Alright, that about does it. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.